you fall, watch you lose in control. I'm seeing red. Watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a special episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. Ben and I are joined today by Chris Rini, the author of The Fine Art of Violence. Chris, you're actually our first reoccurring guest on the show. So what's going on, man?
Hey, man. It's great. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be here to see you guys again. Things are fantastic, man. We just published the book last week, already outsold last year's numbers. And I have like an amazing team of people that like heavy hitters left and right in the MMA media scene, writing for the book and making artwork for it.
Yeah, so go ahead. I was going to say, just describe to us, like, if somebody's listening in or watching and they have no idea what this book is, give me, like, your elevator pitch. Or as long as you want. Go on for 20 minutes. It's interesting stuff. I don't care.
We got the whole podcast for that, but I do have to practice the elevator pitch. MMA, it has no season. That's like one of the biggest drawbacks to the sport. It's basically the schedule is a hamster wheel. So I made this book series to kind of address that. Every book, it's an annual publication. The book starts on January 1st and it ends on December 31st. That's each volume. And, you know, me, a bunch of writers, a bunch of artists, we watch all the fights and we kind of take the most important moments, the most historic moments in people's careers or the best fights of the year. And we try and tell the story of each fight through imagery. And then I got a bunch of writers to do a bunch of essays. People like Chuck Mindenhall, Sean Al-Shadi, Julie Kedzie, Eugene S. Robinson, Josh Rosenblatt, like just a bunch of great minds in the media sphere.
Yeah,
so that's it. That's a book.
No, so we did our last show. I want to say, I was trying to get the date.
It would have been right around
September, I was thinking, right? And obviously a lot has changed since then. We've seen some great fights, some great moments. I mean, we've seen kind of the landscape of MMA shift all over the place since then. Mm-hmm. I guess first, let me ask you, oh man, we can go a million different ways with this question, but do you have a favorite fight from that period of, let's say, September till now, June, that you did for the book?
Oh man, you're killing me. I'm gonna cheat. I have it right here, or at least
that's the best way to cheat, man.
I have some of the. I'm sitting in my studio. I might as well pull it out and trying to think what has happened since then. The later stuff. Davison Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. Oh my gosh, his whole run last year. I mean, it's kind of like I'm kind of glad he took so much time off. You know, that dude like put his body through the ringer, kind of putting himself and flyweight on the map. Yeah, man, that's one of my favorite stories from 2020.
Yeah. So I also have a question. Kind of, we're jumping all over the place here, but what are some of these topics that you had essays about? I know. I mean, all those names you listed are like who's who, right? Of the writing community.
Well, I tried to play to people's strengths, or things that I've heard them talk about before. So for Fernanda Pratchess from, formerly MMA Junkie, The Athletic, now she's with Fanbite Media. I won't give away too much, but, she interviews people in the media a lot for Fanbite. And I heard one interview that just was like kind of added a whole nother layer of depth to the person who I felt like I understood them better. And so I did some artwork about that person who's in the MMA media, and I had Fernanda write about them. Chuck Mindenhall kind of has like a love of tragedy. You know, he's got like he likes this like this fighter at the end of their career, or like just like something tragic. I think resonates with him. And we did a piece together. I did the artwork. He did an essay about Jose Aldo, kind of like meeting his mortality. Like once he lost to Perion, that probably it in terms of belts for him. And being at that crossroads of like, where you're better than most, but not better than the best. Sean Al-Shadi is a huge Dustin Poirier fan, and I wanted to get him paired up with Edward Cowell again, the illustrator. If any of your listeners are familiar with Sean Al-Shadi's like long form pieces that always have artwork accompanying them, Edward Cowell is the guy who does those illustrations. So I got him to work with Sean again. I felt that was like really special. Eugene S. Robinson, boom. Like I've been listening to that guy for years, and I love the way he talks about Jon Jones and Daniel Cormier. And I asked him to write about that, and he wrote like he compared them to Cain and Abel and did this really esoteric essay about them. Oh, it's so cool. And then this guy Adam Nelson, he's called Gorilla the Bear. He's done some artwork for Reebok and for fighters themselves. His pieces, he's got like two. He's got a DC piece and a Bones piece going with that essay. It's just the best. And Josh Rosenblatt, he wrote all the essays in volume 1. I put Josh through the ringer. He's like, man, I don't know about art history, and I always have like all my pieces reference art historical movements. So I give that to him, and then he's got to study and go to Wikipedia and learn about art history before he can write his essays.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on, but yes, there's a lot of killer stuff. There's a lot of killer stuff out there.
It's just so unique what you do to be able to, watch the stuff on the screen, right? Or talk to these different minds in the media and then put that to paper. And, if you look at your pieces, it's just like, for me, like I'm probably like one of the most like least artistic people out there. So I just really respect what you're doing. Like, I see it on the screen, you see it the same as me, right? Well, obviously you don't see it the same as me, right? But for you to just be able to put that on paper, anyone listening, man, and I'm not just gassing you up about this, right? It's like, it's just for me, it's just a different look into MMA. And I really, really would suggest anyone listening to check it out. So yeah, man, I really, really love what you're doing there.
Thank you. If you don't mind, I just want to tell people where they can see the work.
Of course.
Number one, chrisrini.com. That's the only place you could get the book. Pre-orders are available now for the hard copy, or you could download a copy today. So CHRISRINI.com. And also, every Saturday when the fights are happening, I'm on Twitter. I'm sitting there with a piece of charcoal and newsprint, and I draw the fights as they're happening. So I like to have this, my very meticulous ink work that like the book is kind of known for, and then this like really fast, impressionistic, look at the body in motion. That's what I do on Twitter while the fights are happening at Rini MMA. And then those charcoal pieces sometimes, a lot of them go into the book as is, but some of them become the template for a more refined, developed piece. So that's exciting. I never knew that was going to happen. I used to do those live sketches just for fun, just to like, you want to be active, you want to do something, and like, all right, this is what I do that other people don't. I used to joke that I was like the court reporter, for MMA fights, like those guys who sketch pastels of like criminals at trial. I'm like, this is what I'm doing for fights.
I love it. A couple things. First of all, I will say I'm looking at, I can't remember the artist or the illustrator's name you mentioned that did the Jones and Cormier piece. I assume that's what I'm looking at on your website, a sample of Cormier and Jones facing each other off. Man, that I want to put that thing on my wall. It's incredible. Dated 1983. That is incredible.
Okay, I love that. I specifically was like, dude, please let me publish that.
It's so good.
That is actually the inside of the back cover of the book. I was like, because it's silly, so I didn't want to put it as part of the essay. But like, you do the whole book, you like read everything, you're like, that was wild. And like, as you're about to close it, you're like, this is insane. I just thought it was. I'll tell you, Adam Nelson at Gorilla the Bear stole the show. He stole the show. He just was amazing. He saved my ass. I didn't work for like 7 months on this book. I didn't do any drawing because of the pandemic. I was just taking care of my kids and doing my cartoons for Bloody Elbow. And I was like, I am just gonna forget about it. I'm gonna forget that I'm doing this, and I'll do it when I can. And so that's another reason I'm so grateful for everyone who contributed. I couldn't have done this by myself.
I mean, it's cool. If this book is out on my coffee table somewhere and somebody picks it up and flips to that, and like, I know you said you put it on the back, inside the back cover. If you open that book up, that's a book I want to read because that's such a cool piece.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
My other thing I wanted to mention, similar along to those lines, I feel like Kurt and I were saying we should have listened to our first episode with you beforehand, but I feel like you said one of your favorite fighters, or maybe your favorite fighter to draw, was Jon Jones.
I love drawing Jon Jones.
Are you sad that you haven't drawn him in action at least in a long time?
Totally.
And is that still the case?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Man, he's one of my favorite body types, like the real long and lanky, and he's the first person I ever drew where I had the realization that fighters looked like dancers more than anything, the positions that they put themselves in. And now this has become like part of one of the themes of my work is like, when you're watching a fight and you're looking at these pivotal moments and you go frame by frame, it goes ballet dancer, car crash, that is, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the world, like straddling those two worlds is where I want to live. That's what's the word? Interstitial, this like transitional phase of the body. And he really, really captures that. He really does. The piece in the book that I did of him this year was from the Dominic Reyes title defense. And it's a simple one, but it tells it captures where his career was at that moment. He's throwing that oblique kick, and he's catching Reyes. And Reyes knows it's coming, eats the kick, throws the counter left, and Jon is like throwing the kick and simultaneously leaning back like, oh shit, that's where his career was. That one exchange tells you everything about where he was in his light heavyweight reign. Like, the game caught up, the other fighters caught up with him. He was so far ahead, and now the pack is like nipping at his heels.
Well, Jon's always been one of those guys that could just like blend the game so beautifully, right? Like every facet of the game, from offense to defense to being able to cut the cage off to takedowns. I mean, he's just always had it. And yeah, dude, like Ben said, man, it's kind of a shame that we didn't get anything from, live from Jon in this book. We obviously, I'm sure you're with us, we both hope that they can get this Francis Ngannou fight going.
Nice.
So, and again, like that's another fight too, where so much is going on. I'm sure you had some Francis pieces in your book. Obviously, Francis won the title over Stipe.
No. He won it in 2021.
So it'll be forthcoming.
Volume 3.
True. Yes, that is very true.
I'll give you a little.
Oh, here we go. He's got to be one of the more. He's got to be a very aesthetically pleasing fighter to draw, I would imagine.
Yeah,
Francis
he
Ngannou.
is. I mean, he's almost too good looking,
Yeah.
Oh man. So I'm working on.
Oh, beautiful.
Coming along. It's a piece called 6 months of sprawl training. You know?
that exchange right there, kind of when Francis hit that exchange right there, we were all like, that was like the holy shit moment of the fight, right?
Right.
Stuffs the takedown, gets to the back beautifully, and we're like, oh damn, all right.
Yeah.
Francis been training.
That was the moment where you're like, all right, I guess those other guys, like Rosenstrike and JDS and Kane, he was like, do whatever I need to do. And then this fight, he's like, all right, now I'm gonna showcase what I actually learned. Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing one.
So what are some other fighters that you feel like are aesthetically pleasing to draw? I think I know fighters that I like watching that I think are beautiful, but which ones do you like to draw?
Right,
you know?
I think in general, like the women's strawweight division is like churning out really good stuff. I probably did more artwork about Joanna and Jacek versus Zhang Weili than anything else. I mean, that's like, holy crap, man. And Julie Kedzie wrote that article, that essay. That was cool. I remember talking to her about it. I was like, I always hear about this thing. Have you heard fighters say this, where they're like, they kind of feel like, oh, I don't think journalists have a right to comment on fighters and what they do. Only fighters have that right to comment on someone's performance. And I was like, you know what? Let's go all in. This is the best fight of the year, one of the best fights ever. Let's have a fighter write about it. And they, usually that thing is taken like, only fighters have a right to say these things, is taken from a criticism point of view. But I thought I'd kind of switch it a little bit and be like, well, then only a fighter can talk about what was truly great. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite fights, one of the best things I've ever seen, I remember just being on the edge of my seat every second of it, Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
No,
Jacek, Rose Namajunas. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're just amazing people to draw.
Yeah, you're in good company here. We are big-time women's strawweight fans. Kind of flipping
division in the sport, man.
Yeah, we love it. Like, and I have to hope or maybe assume that some Rose Namajunas art is coming up in the next volume as well, considering her year,
man,
and how her story is pretty incredible in and of itself. I will also say, on the flip side of the beautiful fighters, or mostly me on this podcast, love the big boys, the Ben Rothwells of the world.
Yeah.
How do you approach them any differently as an artist?
I guess on a simple level, you just have to figure out some tricks for conveying size. I don't know if you ever find this when you're watching fights. Sometimes, it's easier when you compare like a flyweight and a heavyweight, but somewhere in there, especially in the welterweight to lightweight to middleweight range, I'm like, you could tell me these dudes were huge. You could tell me they were little. You could tell me they were big for their weight class, small for their weight class. It's all people on a screen after a while. And it is hard to convey those certain things. And yeah, sometimes I don't exaggerate very much. At least I don't think I do. But there's a good one of, the Canadian guy with the mullet.
Tanner Boser?
Tanner Boser. There's like just a stellar Tanner Boser portrait in the book, with the missing tooth and the mullet, and you're just like, oh yeah, that is that dude. That's that guy. I try to get like people. I didn't have any writers write about the pandemic. Like that felt like it would be a little too dated, But I had like Josh Rosenblatt write a piece about Kevin Holland. And his year is integral, is like interconnected with the pandemic, and his availability, his willingness to fight all the time, and his craziness. Like, if I can incorporate narratives without beating a dead horse, without beating you over the head about them, that's what I go for. I'm sorry, I got a little derailed from the question.
That's okay. We're talking about blubbery boys. We'll do that to you.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Holland. That is true. Kevin Holland was like a pandemic star, right?
Yeah.
And then, 2021 has not been so kind to him. But pandemic-wise, dude was a star, man. Pandemic made a lot of people, honestly.
It did.
Took advantage of it. It also, kind of derailed some. It was just such a crazy year and time to think about that, 5-10 years. Even looking like at your book or looking back at interviews, articles, results, it's going to be so crazy in 5 to 10 years to look back at this period of time.
Yeah. Who I didn't put in the book because it felt like there's no kind way to do it, or at least relevant, but like JJ Aldrich, didn't she go like 0-4 and get finished like 3 times? That was what a rough year,
Was it? She got thrown to the wolves a couple times.
I was gonna say, wasn't there also Hannah Cyphers? I feel like she had
Cyphers
also
had
just a ridiculous run.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then actually I was just rewatching a fight before we talked. I was watching Hermanson versus Shabazian, and I'm like, because I'm kicking around whether I should put that in the book, because it is a story, like the mishandling of prospects. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. It's like, from a meat grinder to a wood chipper, that's where I feel like he went, just different flavors of ass beating on the ground.
Can I ask you this question, actually, while we're kind of on that subject, and Ben and I talk about this on the podcast a lot. You spoke about the mishandling of some prospects. What do you think about the mishandling of some of the aging veterans in MMA? Because I have a big problem with this a lot. Like, you see these veterans, they come back, they'll get, like, let's say a win, and instead of keeping them in, like, those old guy fights, they're kind of giving them a proper set-off. They're like, all right, we're going to put him in with the number 6 guy in the world who's 25 years old. Go ahead, have fun. It's like, I have a big problem with the mishandling of veterans.
Yeah, it's weird. There are some guys who know what they're doing with their career when they do that. And then there are some people who talk about their career as though they're going on a belt run again. And the UFC, doesn't have a very standardized policy on how to treat people, and I would say the inconsistency is a recipe for like leaving people with a bad taste in their mouths. There are certain people who kind of knew that they were like setting up the next generation, like a Uriah Faber, like that was like somebody who was kind of self-aware. And, but then there are other people who like, and I love Shogun, but like, I mean, finally he's talking about retiring, but I felt like for a while, like, or BJ Penn is the easiest one to be like, come on, this is a person who's like, they have their blinders on, and it's like they're looking in the same way that they have been for the past decade. And it's like, times change. You got to grow. You got to change with the times, or accept that, no one beats Father Time.
That is very true.
I feel like that's a story that you could probably tell every year too. There's going to be some sad retirement, or in some instances, maybe a good one. I do think it's like, first of all, when you're talking about them mismatching veterans, I think it's funny that it even got to the point, I'm not sure if either of you recall this, Clay Guida in a post-fight interview literally asking for no-name opponents because he was tired of fighting like high-ranked people on the up. He's like, give me somebody that nobody knows about, literally asking for easier fights. Because he's one of those guys in that spot for sure. Yeah,
totally. And like, dude, I'm tuning in. I'm like, what's Clay? There are people who I'm like, I want to see what they're up to, know? In the volume 1, I had put in Joe Lozon versus Pearson. Is it Sean Pearson? Matt Pearson? I don't remember his first name.
Yeah, I know exactly. Ross.
Yeah. And it's like, it's kind of cool watching a veteran style on a young guy every once in a while. I mean, Glover Teixeira has made a career resurgence of that,
Very true.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes it's just like the drug, the feeling of winning a world title, like doing the things BJ Penn did in his career is probably an irreplaceable feeling, right? That, think of regular, what we think of as drug addicts, what they'll do to get that fix. Like, I have to assume BJ Penn is just chasing that high again. Yeah,
it's true. Yeah, that's a fair point, man. I can't believe that I didn't. I was a musician for years. I enjoyed playing, and like what I got out of that, it took a long time to replace it.
Yeah. Here you are, man, making art.
I know, right?
Still.
Oh, no. I think I finally kind of maybe surpassed what I did as a musician, as an artist. That's a good feeling.
Awesome. I mean, MMA is always going to give you beautiful moments to write about, or actually to draw about.
Yeah. No, it is a good, it's a great theme to work with, very, very universal themes and very like archetypes coming out the woodwork. Let's
talk about archetypes a little bit, because I feel like we could talk about this for a while now. For me, something I personally like that's happening in the combat sports zeitgeist is the Paul brothers. I don't personally like the Paul brothers necessarily. I don't really understand what they're doing entirely, other than I love the performance art that they're putting out there. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. Are you on board with what they're doing? Are you objectively observing it from afar? Like, what's your approach here?
So I've been aware of the Paul brothers actually for a long time, because before I was doing artwork full time, I had a desk job, and I would, watch a lot of YouTube while I was working, because I had a pretty low effort job. I was a bookkeeper. And I loved the YouTube commentary community. That was really entertaining. That was like my it's how I found out what was going on in the world, as an older person. And so I learned about them probably 2016, 2017 or something. So I watched some videos by this guy, Nerd City, who did a big expose about how they advertise to children. And I was like, oh, okay, these guys, they suck. That's not cool. They basically, the way they advertise is at a rate and in a style that's illegal on TV.
Oh, wow.
But because YouTube is not regulated the same way by the same broadcast laws, they can do things that would actually be illegal on TV. And I was like, oh, okay, I have a quantifiable reason to be like, okay, this is not cool or whatever. And I don't know, man, they're very nihilistic. And I don't know. It's like, imagine if Jackass was had no self-awareness, Jackass was just meaner, and the guys from Jackass are the butt of their own jokes.
Yeah. And
that's what makes them lovable, whereas the Paul brothers are just I don't know. I feel like I'm getting slammed into a locker, when I see them on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with them is the shtick, it kind of works, right? I mean, for what they're going for, at least, they're playing the bad guys. They're riling everybody up. They're enjoying. Listen, 15,000 UFC fans were chanting "fuck Jake Paul" at a UFC event. However much people say they don't care, they do care, right? And obviously, this shtick is not going to last. I don't know how long it'll last, but it's going to come to an end eventually. Do you have any watching interest in the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight this weekend?
Yeah, totally. Here's the thing. I know who I am. I'm a combat sports degenerate. There's a vein of that in me. So yeah, I'm totally gonna watch that. Why not?
Why not? Right?
I mean, I watch it the way I watch Fedor versus Hangman Choi. Yep, can't wait.
Yeah.
It's there. It's on that level. That's how I see it, and I'll take it. Whatever.
I think you deserve credit for articulating what is not to like about the Paul brothers. They're not purposely doing it, right? You're not a mark. If you understand, this is a little bit more sinister underneath what they're doing. Whereas if you find yourself being like, oh, these guys, they just annoy me, how their antics or whatever, that's actually kind of what the response they want, right?
Right. I'm not here to critique their content.
Exactly.
I'm here to be like, I feel like you're not a kind person.
Yeah.
I get that vibe 100% as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I had the chance last week, this interview should be coming up soon, to interview the CEO of Fan Mio, which is some site that's putting on the pay-per-view for this event, right? Okay. And this guy helped make this fight that's happening this weekend between Floyd and was it Logan Paul? I don't even know off the top of my head. I get them confused so left and right. And I feel like when he was trying to describe the draw of the fight, it was similar to what you're saying, Chris, in terms of Fedor versus Hangman Choi. Which one is more skilled. Who in your head is probably going to win.
Yeah.
but there's such a like size disparity that they're tapping into that, like, you just want to see what happens, even though we don't have to pretend this is high level boxing. I guess on one end it is, but we can still just tune in to enjoy the spectacle.
Yeah. I've always felt like, I see the way the Paul brothers things is going, and I think that they are wisely pivoting nonstop, because I think what they wanted at the beginning of all this was for one of them to be the Conor McGregor and let Conor McGregor be the Floyd Mayweather. They watched what McGregor did, parlaying success in one realm into a bigger payday in a second realm. And, McGregor was like vastly overmatched and outskilled, but his celebrity carried him over. And I felt like the Paul brothers are like, well, damn, I'll be the McGregor and I'll let McGregor be the Mayweather. Like, I felt like that was their goal. And I don't think the UFC was going to let that happen. And they've been pivoting ever since. And just like, dude, you can make a lot of money hitting singles and doubles nonstop, and they're doing it. That's what I think Askren was. That's what, and now Woodley.
I've been saying since the beginning, the Paul brothers are kind of the smartest guys in the room, right? They're picking their opponents very strategically, very smartly. And yeah, I mean, honestly, just yesterday it came out that I believe August 28th, Tyron Woodley is going to be stepping in there with Jake Paul, who I think Jake is the brother that is going to go a little bit farther than Logan. I mean, if Logan, obviously, when he loses to Floyd, he's going to be, 0-2? Or I guess this is just an exhibition, right?
Yeah.
But
well, I mean,
Jake is
where do you go after Floyd is kind of a better question. Win or lose, you're just like, that's cool. Like, you're going to get a bigger payday. You're just going to. This is like to kind of look back at another thing. Like, I've always felt like Conor McGregor's career was going to derail because when he came in to the UFC and started his rise, he was able to articulate everything he was going to do. I'm going to blow through featherweight. I'm going to win the title. Then I'm going to move up to lightweight. Then I'm going to get another title. I'm going to box Floyd Mayweather. And he never said what he was going to do after that with any conviction. The whole thing, I'm going to have a season. I'm going to win my title back. It was with none of the gravity, with none of the conviction that he once used to speak. And I think like, it's like, when the dog catches the car, what do you do with it?
right.
What do you do? What happens when you get to the top of the mountain? It's very easy to focus on a goal. It's very hard to be content, or to like fight the battle within. It's very easy to look outside of yourself.
What did Bisping just say? It's kind of hard to be a dog every day when you're waking up in silk sheets. And
sure, that's right? An old one. I think Forrest Griffin was the first person I heard do that.
That's kind of where I think Conor McGregor's kind of gone. It's like, lightweight's a bunch of dogs, and he reached this plateau that probably makes it hard for him to wake up every day and want to be a dog and go out there and get in these dog fights with these guys. And we'll see when he fights Poirier in a couple months. What happens there? I mean, Conor McGregor's
he can get up once his pride is hurt.
Yeah,
But once again, that's external. That's external motivation. Like, to find it from within is a different type of person.
It is.
Yeah. Going back a little bit here, and I think this is a little bit related to what we're talking about, the motivation, right? Like, is it internal, external? If we're talking about Tyron Woodley, right, fighting a Paul brother here, what's the approach? I feel like nobody is really thinking or talking about what is Woodley's motivation here. Like, I think some people in a camp will just kind of write him off as, he needs a paycheck now, yada, yada, yada. I do think there's like some genuine, like, personal animosity and desire there. Like, genuinely, I don't think this guy's just
friend.
Exactly. That simple.
You just be like, boom, you can just pin it on that. Like, also, I think it's Woodley's best move for his first move out of the UFC.
Yeah.
On a super simple level, like, you know, what are you going to do? Multi-fight contract, or just like, dude, get that money, get a bigger platform, and then hopefully parlay that into a better contract with a Bellator or PFL.
I thought you were about to say into a huge rap deal.
Tyron hasn't won a fight since what was it?
Since
Falling Out of Love or whatever it's called came out.
No, I think he hasn't won a fight since I Beat Your Ass.
Oh wow. yeah, that's the one. Yes.
Yeah,
he should be coming out for this this fight.
Oh God, I love it.
God, you got to do it, man.
Yeah.
He's somebody, calling back to earlier in this conversation, who has kind of depressed us. We both Kurt and I like really liked, or at least I liked watching Tyron Woodley fight. I liked his championship run. I know he's getting all kinds of shit about it now, but man,
the first Thompson fight was great.
Yeah. People forget.
So if we
didn't have a promoter, you know.
Yeah,
he has a demoter.
Yeah. If we could shift gears quick,
sure.
Did you watch the other? Actually, last night, did you watch the Ultimate Fighter's return?
No, I did not. I look at TV shows, and I'm saying like just like prestige TV, anything, whatever. And I guess Tough falls under that. I just wait until people who I respect talk about it. You know what I mean? I don't watch anything new. I'm like, if it's great, it'll be great like in a year when I catch up to it. You know, I was late to everything, and I'm no worse off for it.
Got it.
Yeah, I can't think of a show that I'm like current on. I'm trying to remember when I tapped out of The Ultimate Fighter.
Well, yeah, I mean Ben and I have gone and blasted The Ultimate Fighter for many moons ago, and it's like it kind of feels like it was unnecessary coming back. So yeah, we're just trying to get your quick thoughts on comeback and I guess the significance.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Now I got to know when I stopped watching The Ultimate Fighter.
That's
looking
okay.
Up the seasons.
We were doing that last week. We were looking back at like the seasons and the winners and
7 or 10 or something like that. Like we couldn't recall, but man, I will say this. I want to give The Ultimate Fighter a chance. And we talked about it last week. Like, we're probably going to try to actually watch some of it. But dude, I don't know when you stopped watching, but it's the same. They had this whole big layoff. Everything's going to be different. I even came back thinking, all right, I'm going to actually try to watch this show a little bit this year. Man, it is the exact same.
Oh, forget it. I can't do it. You know, every once in a while, like there was a time when the UFC had a smaller roster, I think, where I felt like it was valuable just because you're like, all right, I'm going to, I know some of these guys are going to stick around. Like I probably have more of an investment in Neil Magny's career because I enjoyed his fight to get into the house. I was like, oh wow, this dude like came back from like adversity to get in. Oh, that was cool. And then I like paid, there are people like that. You just pay a little more attention to them. Like I remember watching TJ Dillashaw and John Dodson and, when they were in there. So, but I mean, what am I talking about? Something like 10 years ago?
Right.
That it's hard. Yeah. The payoff ain't worth it. I remember watching maybe the Rousey Tate season. I think that's when I may have given up. Yeah.
I think their problem, I think they honestly, this is going to sound like I'm some sort of television expert, which I am far from, but I enjoy a well-produced, it can be about anything, a well-produced reality TV show. If the editors understand what's funny and if they understand like the stories that people are actually care about, I'll watch a reality show about basically anything if it's well done. And I think The Ultimate Fighter is just the same bros shirtless talking about missing their family for 30 minutes every week. Like, give me something funny or give me something actually interesting to keep me invested for the first 45 minutes of the show.
100%. They have no idea. Look, they don't even know what they're promoting. That's the truth.
Right.
Because the UFC is committed to never letting a fighter get too much recognition. Unfortunately, they are too good at it. Like, good luck promoting a fighter. You know what I mean? I'd love to see them accidentally be too good at promoting a fighter. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Well, and the sad thing with Tough is we also have the Contender Series now. Contender Series is tough without the drama, right?
I know. I don't
You know
even
what I'm
watch
saying?
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I don't get these. They're like basically like sucking up a portion of the regional market, and they're like, the UFC is basically wants to be both the minor leagues and the major leagues at the same time, but they only want to sell you like they're the major leagues. And it's like, man, people can tell.
That is true.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like some Contender Series just because of the timing of it. It's convenient, like if I'm home on a Tuesday night or whatever.
Sure.
But
Sure.
I think you bring up a great point that they present themselves as like the Contender Series, right? It's often presented as like, this is the just one last step before getting in the UFC. But typically half the fights I think they do 5 fights on a card, maybe,
Something like that, yeah.
are like very clearly neither of these fighters are ready for the UFC, which is like exactly the fight that should be happening at a regional level.
Yeah, seriously. And quite frankly, with other promotions coming back, I'm like thrilled. Dude, I'm making volume 3. It's like Roy McDonald's in there, the Pitbull brothers in there, Kayla Harrison, Sergio Pettis beating Juan Archuleta. Like, man, there are better fights out there. That's the thing. Like, oh my God. Ai Hamasaki. This is one of the best fights of the year, happened in Ryzen, like completely awesome. I think it was their atomweight fight, title fight. Like, dude, there's good stuff out there. I don't need to watch regional MMA, have you ever noticed every time the UFC buys an organization, the elites of that organization become the best fighters in the UFC? You're better off watching a multitude of organizations because at the elite level, you're going to see better people. Who was a KSW champion? Jan Blachowicz, who's out there, killing it in Ryzen, whoever's killing it in ONE or PFL, man. Dude, I'd rather watch them,
Yeah.
Do you see John Lineker smash the hell out of somebody?
Yes.
Watch DJ, like, catch a grounded knee. Like, that's 1,000 times more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good MMA out there, not just the UFC. I mean, we've been talking for months now. Like, Bellator's product looks a lot better now that they're on Showtime. PFL looks really good on ESPN too. Like, these organizations are thriving right now, and it's good for MMA. You don't want that monopolized. Just the UFC. That's all you can watch, right?
Yeah, man. Because you see what happens, man. Somebody was asking me recently why the UFC doesn't alter their posters. Like, that's one thing they get shit on a lot for.
Yes.
And I was like, on a certain level, like, their dominance makes them stagnant. If there was somebody closing in on them, they would be forced to be competitive. And I think there's, the thing with McGregor that we were saying, like, you get those silk sheets, it's hard to have the dog in you. How, from a business point of view, you're like, why should I innovate?
True.
And like, you don't know that you're getting stale, but if your fight posters are, you can't tell the difference between a 2021 fight poster and a 2008 fight poster. That says more about you than it does about your content.
Yeah, man, I will say you are hitting the nail on the head of something that like a drum that I beat constantly, that I went to my very first live UFC show in 2009, I think. Mm-hmm. And the event experience from then until now is still basically the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you're still going to hear a Linkin Park and Old Black Betty mashup on the DJ in between every other fight. Like, the lights, the experience is still the same. They're not. And I think you hit the nail on the head that, like, it's because they don't feel like they have to. And I think, sadly, like Kurt and I constantly, we've been talking for a year now that AJ McKee against Pitbull is like our most anticipated fight of the year, which I'm sure that's a huge story to tell. But still, it doesn't feel like Bellator is actually, beyond hardcore MMA fans like us, it doesn't feel like, they still probably think the UFC is basically the only game in town.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to, let me think how I want to phrase it. It's like, there's only a finite number of people in the world who can be fight fans. Mm-hmm. Like, it only resonates with a percentage of the population.
True.
And then that larger audience that can get drawn in by a celebrity. They're getting drawn in by a celebrity, not by a fight. So we have to like kind of accept that. Like, this is a weird slice of the world we're in. And I would like to see different organizations, champions, and top 5 level people. I wish there were universal rankings. That was like, I remember in the Strike Force days, you would see like rankings with mixing, like especially like the heavyweights across the two organizations. I think that was a cool thing. And whatever, man, people are swallowing up everything and have their own little castle, and only what happens in their castle is real. So it's a hard road to navigate.
Yeah.
So I guess lastly, we can we'll ask you. There is a live UFC event this weekend, headlined by Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Augusto Sakai. Any fights you're looking forward to on that card, or it could be the main event. Main event's pretty solid too.
Not sold on Sakai yet. Sorry. And I have seen Rozenstruik get worked, a couple times now. So I'm more nervous than anything else. I'm hoping that Sakai is aggressive, and that it's one of those things where you're like, you have complementary styles. If Sakai is coming forward, he's going to give Rozenstruik the opportunity to be a counterpuncher. I don't think Sakai is going to jab him up the way Gon did. So that's cool. I'm into that. I'm kind of curious about Santiago Ponzinibbio.
That's the fight.
I super felt for the guy. I did a piece about him because of just how cruel MMA is. You're like, you had all this momentum. You get injured, the fight in Argentina, you lose the chance to fight in your country on that kind of stage, and then you come back and you just get flatlined. Oh, brutal. Yeah, that's the one guy Tanner Boser. Oh, that's a great man.
Tanner Boser and heavyweight Ilir Latifi.
Yes,
love that.
Yeah, and Ariane Lipsky. I'll keep an eye on her. She's in the book too. I love that knee bar that she hit.
That was brutal, man.
Carolina. Yeah, that was really badass. So that's the kind of thing that you're like, boom, okay, I'll just keep an eye on you next time you fight.
Yeah, it's a pretty decent card, top to bottom. There's a couple nice names, couple nice fights. It's kind of good that MMA slowed down a little bit these last couple weeks, because a couple weeks before that, UFC had done 12 or 14 weeks in a row. You sprinkle in Bellator, PFL into that. Now you got the Ultimate Fighter coming back. Sometimes it's a lot, man.
Yeah, it is sometimes.
Yeah,
I enjoy the earlier start times. I like that one on TNT series that they did. I thought they did a good job with that. The pacing was. I really. This is another thing that, like you were saying about the different organizations, when they have a different production style that you can identify, like that one series, boom, they were like, it was like lightning. And then I noticed that Bellator, I feel like they don't edit their camera angles quite as fast, like they linger a lot more on their camera shots. I really enjoy that. I like taking the time to kind of soak in. This is another reason why I'd rather see multiple organizations than multiple levels of UFC content, because you can see that there's a different production style, as opposed to UFC, which is UFC light, UFC chum, whatever you want to call it.
Hey, while we're on this, I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I feel like at one point, this had to have been months ago. I think this was your tweet, Chris, because I feel like I responded to it, proposing that a total aesthetic change to MMA events, to having I want to say you said lo-fi beats, or very chill rap is the. Oh yeah,
I think I did say that. Yeah.
Man, we might be the only two people in the world that would appreciate that, but
I know, man, dude,
some sort of aesthetic change.
Yeah, I went through a long period where I was like, oh God, I'm so tired of this. I just turned off the sound and I was putting on albums, and I was like, all right, this is better. I have a YouTube playlist. It's called I don't know, MMA mashups, I think, and it's like contemporary sounds with like classic soul albums mashup, you know. And I'm like, all right, I can do this. I could do this instead.
It's interesting. I've never fully tried it, but I definitely should like rewatching an event or something. Because sometimes, honestly, the commentary does get a little bit annoying.
Yeah, man. Actually, Trent Reinsmith, my colleague over at Bloody Elbow, just published an editorial today being like, we need 2 commentary teams, one for the prelims, one for the main event. It's fatiguing, and it's like I think they get tired, they lose focus, they're talking for 7 hours. I'm like, yes, love it. I'm into this.
That makes a ton of sense, actually.
Does,
especially because I feel like I love Daniel Cormier for the most part, but I feel like lately sometimes when we get to that co-main and main event, it's like, Daniel, what are you talking about? Like, you're all over the place, buddy.
This is my refrain. You know, a much simpler thing is like, yo, kick it back to Anik. If you catch yourself talking about something other than the fight, kick it back to Anik, man. He is he's the secret sauce. Those guys go rogue like crazy.
Yeah, that is true. I honestly really, really like that idea. I think that, again, doubt the UFC is going to listen or ever try anything new, right? But that is actually a really, really good idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Not that the UFC would ever try anything new. is the shit. Do you have a favorite commentator? Not even UFC. Any favorite commentary team or dream commentary team? I know we're getting towards the end here.
That's all right.
Questions.
I always tell you my first favorite commentator was Mauro Ranallo. He was like, you know, oh wow, this is fun. This guy is cool. You know, he's like capable of doing play-by-play, but also like sounded way more knowledgeable than you know, like a Goldberg. You know, like when I was really becoming a fan, I could hear the difference. And look, man, this is my other go-to thing. I learned jiu-jitsu from listening to Joe Rogan, you know, in the early days of my becoming a fan. Like I remember going to my first class and they're like, all right, you know, and I was a dummy, you know, didn't know anything about how to do anything, but they could be like, all right, get in his guard. I knew where to go. Get in half guard. I knew where to go and what to do because I had been listening to Rogan. And I don't really feel like someone today could do that. But the reason is because the game has changed.
It's changed so much.
You don't see guys sitting full guard and like, you know, past the half and then past the side control. The game has changed. So like maybe Rogan is not, you know, he has not changed with the times the same way. You know, it's okay. It's okay for life to move. You know, it's okay for life to move on.
I would say that's my biggest. That's like for sure my biggest critique of Rogan is that his like understanding, and I feel like it's when you have him in there with somebody like Daniel Cormier or Dominic Cruz or Paul Felder, you realize the vast difference in their understanding of what's happening in the cage and being able to explain, right? Rogan is talking about, oh, the guard's open, he should pass it now. Meanwhile, Cormier is talking about this grip that he should have here and what the other guy is doing and why this fits in the grander scheme of the fight. You know,
well, Rogan for so long, he was doing double duty. When he was with Goldberg, he was kind of doing play-by-play and analyst at the same time. And now so much, he's been relieved of so much of his work that it's almost like he's just, you know, I think this is going to happen, you know, like, all right, what else, man? I think it's not.
My problem with Rogan is he gets too onto something. Like he almost wants to like talk it into existence. And when it's not happening, he just kind of like beats it and beats it and beats it. I really do. I really like Felder. Felder is awesome. And, you know, props to Felder on an awesome career. Just called it quits. But, man, Felder is really, really good. I love the Mauro Ranallo call as well.
Right. I think that it's hard because it takes time to really listen and pay attention and think about. But, like, individual pairings matter. Like DC and Dominic Cruz, double DC. That's a good one.
That is a good one. Yeah.
You know, that's like, you know, they're like I don't know, like a comedy team. You know, there's always the straight man and then the comic. You know, like they kind of naturally have that
synergy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, man, I would love to see Mauro Ranallo with some of these UFC commentators. Honestly, I think this is a totally different dynamic, but I honestly think Mauro and Cormier in the booth together, it might be terrible, but it would be hilarious.
Oh, I think
I would love it.
That is a good one. That is a really good one. Also, like, as much as I love Mauro, I feel like Anik has. I don't have an issue with him at all. He's really special. The thing about him that is different from everybody else is that he's subtle.
Yes.
I think that this UFC in general lacks for subtlety, and Anik is a special tool in their toolbox.
He's so well studied too. Like everything he says, he just knows what he's talking about. He's down to business. Yeah, love Anik as well. Mauro for me is cool because he's kind of like one of those guys that always can leave from the commentary both like his imprint on an MMA moment, right? Just by like his passion and the way that he just like, you can tell like the guy absolutely loves being in that moment and loves what he's doing. And that's what I've always respected about Mauro.
Yeah, that's really well said. That is, there's an honesty to his excitement. That,
right, exactly.
Makes him special. That's a great observation.
Yeah. All right, Chris, let's wrap this up. Please, again, just give us everywhere we can find the book. Any closing thoughts where we can find you online? Hit us with it.
I am primarily on Twitter right now at Rini MMA, and you can get The Fine Art of Violence Volume 2 in hard copy or digital at chrisrini.com. CHRISRINI.com. Volume 1 has sold out twice. Last year, first printing, and this year I got a couple reprints done, and that sold out too. You can still get a digital download of it. That features like 100 drawings by myself and 10 essays by Josh Rosenblatt. Volume 2 features artwork by myself, Edward Cow, Adam Nelson, and essays by Chuck Mindenhall, Sean Al-Shadi, Julie Kedzie, Fernanda Praches, Schwan Humes, Eugene S. Robinson, and Josh Rosenblatt. It is an all-star team of some of the best minds in MMA today.
Awesome. Well, again, we really appreciate you chatting with us. We're definitely going to do it again for Volume 3. It's always good to kind of like see how the game's changed. Yeah,
totally.
Appreciate it again, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you. Thank you for having me on, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
No escape, can step to this. Face the pain.